Hello.
Hello.
Here I am with Alex Ray. How you doing, Alex?
Hi there. I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, very good. Thank you for jumping on the call. So I wanted to get Alex on. This is for the audience to know because I stumbled across your page and you do origami,
Yes. Paper folding.
paper folding.
Yes.
Is
Paper folding.
that actually the name origami? Is that the kind of meaning in Japanese?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I think ori. I'm gonna muck it up now. Probably. I think one of them means paper and one means folding. So yeah, I think it literally is origami, and that's what it meaning is. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. And this was interesting to me because at one time I got into, I've always been kind of nifty or nimble with my fingers, enjoying, like, I've done some basket weaving, I've worked some carpentry, like carving, different things like that. And I never to a super expert level, but I've always enjoyed
Yeah.
that sort of art or those arts. And origami seemed to me at one stage like, this is
Yeah.
probably an access point to similar sort of meditative states. You can sort of lose yourself in the
Yeah.
process. There's some quite, like, you have to be quite exact as well. Very exact with the level of models that you create.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just came across your page and I thought it would be such a cool conversation to have. And from an overview of the interest, I think it's one of those things, and we can talk about this, that how much you're able to sell origami or these kind of things. Those are questions I've had in mind. But it's almost seems like there's not so much of a commercial outlet. And so it's almost just for the beauty and just for the joy and just for the art of it.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, we've had a little chat prior to this conversation, and that's where you actually make your living from, in kind of sharing the art of paper folding with others. And so yeah, just really excited to dig into it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. It's yeah. Basically, there's not too much money that can be made from it. It really is just for the joy of it, and yeah, the therapeutic side. Yeah, I mainly do it just to get as many people joining in with the craft as possible. It's very therapeutic. So yeah, but yeah, you do have to be precise. There's two. I call it two different ways. There's the mathematical side, which obviously is very important in origami because it's all about shape, symmetry, etc., which I'm terrible at. And I'm more artsy. So a lot of mine, I'm probably not the best at precise folding. I just kind of sculpt it more to be more lifelike. So if you actually look into it in depth and show it to a proper origami professional, there go, that's terrible. But I craft it so it looks very kind of nice, in my opinion. So it's more art side, whereas the maths is quite evident in a lot of the models that you'll see. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Although it makes me think of the old wabi sabi Japanese,
Yeah.
beauty and imperfection. So
Yeah.
maybe if they're of that lineage, then they might be
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
accepting of it.
Yeah.
So how did you get into it?
My dad started teaching me some very basic ones when I was very young. He taught me how to make an origami samurai hat. And then I tackled how to make an origami water bomb from one of his books that he gave me. And yeah, I started taking them to school and showing the odd like friend at school and things like that. But yeah, it literally just grew from there. And then I kind of had a bit of a break, and then got back into teaching, or got into primary teaching when I was doing that at uni, and came out as a kind of club slash maths tool that could be used in the classroom. And then yeah, it kind of went a bit crazy from there. So especially during lockdown, I've made pretty much at least at the peak, I was making one every other day type thing. So, but now it's kind of died down a bit because we're allowed outside. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so was your dad sharing it? Was that something that he was also into as a sort of semi hobby, or just one thing he'd picked up once upon a time and shared with his son on one occasion and his son ran with it?
Yeah, I think he had 2 or 3 books, and I remember, Trace, he was the classic type of dad who looked at the Atkins diet and then got bored of that. It was very much like, I think he got into hobbies here and there, and it was one that I think he probably picked up a book and go, oh, I'll give that a shot, and made a few models. But yeah, he was, because I was very arty. I love art, painting, etc. But yeah, I think it was something he wanted to show me how to make. So yeah, but I don't think he would have expected it to have become as much of a kind of something to really focus on as I have.
Yeah, cool. So a little bit on the art point, a lot of the people that I work with, they relate with this term kind of multi-passionate, you know, so pulled in lots of different directions. And how much has that been a part of your own artistic journey, and how did origami, or the focus of on origami, kind of come about? And sometimes it's intentional, like I'm going to close down and converge on one thing, and sometimes it's just lockdown happened and you're there with a piece of paper. Like, what did it look like?
I think it was just, I think it was completely separate to what I was doing, because I'm a portrait artist mainly, so I do lots of pet portraits and stuff. And when I was at university, my main focus was again kind of portrait painting, and then I focused a lot on quite bleak things like Auschwitz and stuff like that. So completely opposite to origami. I think I get bored quite quickly in terms of things, so I always have to have loads of different hobbies going on. But the origami, I think it's just come out of, it's just something that you can use your hands. Again, I think you said that you're quite into using your fingers for things and stuff like that, carpentry. Mine's the same, so I do guitar and stuff on the other side of things. And again, these are all things that I've used when I was teaching, and obviously in my current role working in the hospital. So yeah, it's all stuff that I could share with others more than, look at me, I can do this. It's been very much wanting to pass it on to kids especially, and then obviously to families. So yeah, I don't like doing very precise things. It's very much out there. Even the painting, you were smashing bits of wood with hammers and things. It was just kind of very sporadic type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And I'm thinking back to the last time I made anything origami wise was we bought a box of sushi here on the island, and there's one half Japanese, half Algerian, which is an amazing mix, who grows wine here, but he also makes sushi, and so you can get these boxes of sushi. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a lovely, it was the box itself was almost a piece of origami.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took it apart and then backwards engineered it, or created my own. And I've got some memories of having picked up different things here and there. There's a crane that you come across in a restaurant, or there's the water bomb, I think you mentioned. You know, that's a classic one growing up. And then there's paper planes and stuff. And so in a way, there's like a social element to it. In a way, it was sort of, look what I can do. See, it's a great little gift. So when you were growing up, or maybe at university, like, what role did origami play in your life before it was part of your professional life?
I think it was just, like I said, it was something to take my mind off things. When I was at university, it was kind of very sporadic kind of things. It really came to light that I was going to take it a bit more seriously, because it was an art with a teaching degree. So again, it was something I wanted to put into the teaching side. But I don't really use it as a professional thing. It really is something I come home to, even after a busy day of teaching origami or whatever it might be, and actually sitting down to make a Dev model. And a lot of the things, I made 2 or 3 of my own designs. I think you mentioned earlier that pretty much all the models I fold, and a lot of people will fold, are designed by other origami designers. Obviously, these incredible people who I have no idea how they folded some things, and you follow them. First of all, I followed through YouTube videos because it's a bit easier to follow, and then you go through to diagrams, which is obviously individual pictures, and then the next step, which I've started getting onto, is a crease pattern, which are horrendous. They're like a map. So basically, if you've folded a model and you completely unfold it, you'll see all the creases. So if you make those creases, you then have to work out how to collapse it, but I'm not quite there with that. So yeah, because it's
Wow.
copyrights of these other, it's kind of a grey area, so you can't really sell any models unless you start asking the original designer if you're okay to sell it. And the only ones you can sell are the traditional ones, like you said, the crane and the water bombs, because they are so old they don't know who the original designers were of those. Yeah, but origami's used in so much stuff. Actually, there's a guy called Robert J. Lang. He's the main kind of one for America, and he used to be in with NASA and stuff. He was quite a head engineer or something along those lines for NASA, and then he ended up being one of the main ones for the satellites. So obviously, the compacting of the satellite was origami related, because obviously they had to work on getting it out from this little kind of thing into a full-on satellite. And then the same was for airbags. I think car airbags was again influenced by origami, and there's quite a bit out there that's influenced by the craft. So yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, didn't know that, but I mean, it makes perfect sense, and cheap prototyping.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you can put it onto metal and things, but you'll see a lot of stuff, anything that's a lot of furniture these days as well, especially the kind of stuff you see in Sweden and things. There's a lot of influence on this kind of how it can be put away and folded, especially in the small houses and things. So those ones that are built in kind of tiny little vans and they turn into these small houses, it's how you can put everything away. And yeah, there's a big influence the origami is starting to make on quite a lot of things, really.
Yeah. On that front, do you know much about its history itself? Is that something you've
I looked into a bit. I think it was to do with China and Japan, and from there it's kind of, I think it just gradually developed. Like I said, the traditional models, they don't know where they've come from, because they're so old. I think the first ever model was the origami crane, and that's the first book with diagrams in it as well.
right?
There's obviously there's a lot of origami artists who are very kind of well renowned in the kind of origami circuit, if you call it that. Like I said, Robert Lang's the big one in terms of people may have heard of him from outside of the origami side of things, because he's obviously quite big in America, etc. And he does lots of lectures and TED Talks. The ones that are quite big in terms of different forms, there's a guy who sadly passed away. What was his name? French guy who I've based a lot of my stuff on. I can't remember what his name is. Eric Jossel, that's the one. Eric Jossel,
Right.
who sadly passed away, but he was massive influence on these amazing kind of faces and things like that. And there's guys at the moment, Satoshi Kamiya, and lots of different ones who are gradually becoming bigger in terms of, yeah, just people knowing who they are. But other than that, history-wise, I'm a bit, not great with that.
Yeah, no, all good. So let's go to the lockdown section of your story. And so, I mean, this was such a kind of fascinating time in world history, but I think also, as far as the opportunity for people to pick up creative things or retake up some hobbies.
Yeah.
Like I generally find that most people for the first lockdown had quite an enjoyable time of it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think in terms of getting the hobbies, and it was spending their time outside because, well, if they could, because you saw a lot more people going on walks, and poor dogs were getting dragged around for their third or fourth walk. We get out to avoid. But yeah, crafts were huge. I think there was a massive. I myself got into doing some Zoom sessions for a couple of months earlier this year, and I had quite a few people joining. And then as soon as things started to die down, it's kind of dropped off in terms of those sessions. But it was something that I now focus on creating the origami paper. So, and then going through the whole process. That's something that's quite fun. When I say the paper, I'm not going out and cutting down trees and creating it from that end. You do tissue paper and glues and things like that to make the paper, and then obviously I
Right.
fold this model, and then obviously I then be able to put it on media, social medias and things. And I give a lot of them away to friends, family, and patients and anyone nearby. Really, I don't sell them; I give them away, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. So over the lockdown and in general, what do you find people get from the experience?
It's somewhere to go. Basically, I sit on a chair listening to music, or having the TV in the background. But yeah, it's you focus on it without realizing for 2 3 hours, and it's just somewhere nice to go. Really, there's the odd time where you want to throw it into a dustbin, but other than that, it's quite therapeutic. There's a lot of models where you're just doing the same folds again and again. They're my favourite to fold, but they're often quite large ones. I made a 3 meter life-size king cobra. That was from six
Wow.
meters of paper, which took 3 weeks to fold. But again, I quite enjoyed that because it was the same thing again and again. The pangolin's the same. The models that generally take
What's that word you use? The pangolin?
pangolin, so it's like an anteater. So I've got it here. So this one here. So basically, each one of them is a scale, and you obviously have to fold them. And then this was by Eric Jossel as well. So it's a big 3D one. So it's one of my favorites. It was my favorite outright, but I'm getting a few
Yeah.
more models. But then that's the complex one, but then you can make a tiny little one. So it really
Right.
ranges. Some of them
Yeah,
have
please, can you hold it? Can you hold it up a little longer?
yeah, which one? That one there is a tiny little one. So that's got a
Okay.
few different type ones. I only folded this the other day, actually, this one. But you can see the difference, obviously. But you still get the gist. There's obviously some very complex ones and some very basic
Yeah.
ones. So yeah, I've made quite a few hundred over lockdown. I've made a lot, and there's not much storage left in the house as it's not a big house anyway. So yeah, it's been somewhere nice to go in terms of, and like I said, it's something I come back to do instead of watching TV and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Has that always been the case for you, or was there a time when you realized that there was actually kind of more medicine for you in the madness of the modern world in doing the arts and crafts?
No, it's always been something I've enjoyed doing more than, obviously I do like play games and all this lot, but and I play guitar, but I don't come back, I imagine, like a lot of bands and all these singers, and sit there. I can't sit there for 2 3 hours practicing guitar, whereas I can come back and I enjoy folding paper. And it's the same with anyone who's got something. I imagine if I was a carpenter, even if I've had a busy day at work, and I know you come back and you're suddenly going to be faced with doing something quite mentally challenging and a bit physical, obviously making some sort of wooden furniture. But again, it's more relaxing almost doing that than sitting there watching Netflix or whatever it may be. Yeah, it's something I've always done, and I hope other people do. It's not necessarily just origami, with any of their crafts anyway, because it's just much more therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely. Let's kind of wrap up on that note. Um, speaking like how, if people are interested, how might they get in touch with you? What might a
Yeah,
like lesson look like?
a lesson. To be honest, I have two. Normally, once I've done them on Zoom, I have obviously the one that we're doing at the moment, face on. But the most important one's the one looking down at the table or whatever it may be. So I have my phone linked up to look down on the table. So when I've done scout groups and things like that. But I prefer, it's much better doing face-to-face ones, obviously, because you can then work
Yeah.
through them and actually help them with the folds. But yeah, obviously I do a lot of those, but a lot of things out there I've started on YouTube. There's a brilliant guy called, and I'll send you a link obviously if not, called Joe Nakashima, and he's a quite nice, there's simple and then they get to intermediate and a bit harder, but they've got diagrams and he goes through each one very slowly. So those origami books that you get in Waterstones or whatever it may be, try and stay clear of them because the diagrams are very difficult to read. And also the paper they have in the back, they're not great. They're just generally printed. So just use normal printer paper instead of the little origami paper you get in backs of books. I use printer paper when I'm teaching others because it actually holds its shape a lot more. Yeah, and it's a cheap hobby at the end because like I said, I've just bought tissue paper and used some bit of glue, and that's made enough paper for me to make quite a few models, and other than that I've not needed anything else. So yeah, but my Instagram's quite easy to get a hold of, and yeah, the website links is on that as well. So yes, Tosca Origami, Tosca, and then Origami. It's Tosca Origami, which is the name of one of my old dogs, so that's why that's come about. So yeah.
Right. Did he
Yeah.
used to eat any of your origami models?
No, it was quite old. It was before. It was just a name that I always quite liked, so I ended up using it for everything. And it, like, I set up the Instagram as originally just to be a personal account, but after a few photos of dragonflies, I put up one photo of, I think it was a spider, which was technically not origami because I had to use scissors. And then it kind of got a few people going, oh, and then I suddenly thought, I'll keep on going with the origami, I think, a bit more. So Instagram has helped massively with me continuing to kind of get out there with the origami, because then you get to share the finished product at the end. That's, yeah.
I'll stay on this point for a minute. So Instagram's so interesting, or the internet in general has all of these little sub communities you never know about until you're involved in them. I came across your page and I was like, whoa, look at this. This is madness. Like, you know, the model you just held up, the anteater looking one, it just seemed like just remarkable works of art.
Yeah.
And so you being a little bit more involved in that community, does it seem like it's a space that's kind of blowing up? It's getting more popular?
I think certain parts of it are. In the UK, there's the British Origami Society, which it's got some people. I think it needs a lot more kind of people joining it, really. And I've been to the main guy, Tony O'Hare, is in Bristol anyway. So there's the Bristol Origami kind of meets. It's much bigger there's the USA that's got quite a few. There's the first museum, actually. There's one museum in Zaragoza in Spain, which I think's really quite an interesting one. There's pockets. I think obviously Japan's massive, but yeah, I think the flower side of things, quite a few people. I had a go at making origami flowers. I made some for a funeral and a wedding, and I think that's growing quite a bit in terms of people creating things like that. And obviously you've seen for weddings, I think people use the kind of book paper to make cranes or whatever it may be, decorations for stuff. Yeah, it's becoming a bit more, I think it's more, people are more aware of it. So when I go around where I work and go, oh, I'm Alex, I do origami, and people go, oh, you know, that's the paper folding, and everyone always does that motion because of the fortune teller, and I say that's banned. But yeah, it's something that's gradually getting more recognition, I think.
Oh wait, you've got to say a little bit more here. The fortune teller, which is taking me right the way back to being a kid in the playground.
No, not the fortune tellers. No, fortune tellers, I ban them because everyone always just goes, oh, can we fold one of them? I say, no, we do catapults and water bombs and things that are a bit more entertaining to a 7-year-old than here's a paper and some pens. It's great if they do that, but no, they need to learn something a bit more entertaining. There's lots of modular ones. I don't know if you can see it behind. There's a little green thing just down there, and that's a modular one. So that's where you make quite a few pieces and then put it together like a puzzle.
Would you mind grabbing it just to?
That's fine. Yeah. Right, there it is. So yeah, this is one I teach quite a bit. So each one of these is a separate piece. So this one's 30 pieces. And there's very basic, easy ones. And I teach these to patients who are bed bound and things like that when I'm working. And yeah, then they have the challenge of putting it together, because it's not easy to put it together. So it turns into a puzzle within itself. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I can. My brother's getting excited at this point. He loves puzzles, so
There you go.
the
Yeah,
combination is great.
yeah. There's some good ones. Sonobe, I think it is. Sonobe is the one that you can learn to make really easily. If you put 6 of them together, it makes a cube. 12 makes a smaller one of this, and then obviously 30. I think there's a 90 one, but I'm
Wow.
not really good for doing that one. But yeah, there's a lot of modular out there, because I think people use it for decorations again.
Cool. All right. So final point, and this is more on the creative process and kind of maybe an insight into your creative process or tips for people that are struggling with stuff. So one of the sides of everything being out there on the internet is it's so easy to compare yourself to what else is out there. And I think that's a really interesting point. Like when we want to persevere with any craft, and even something like origami, where it sounds like you're following someone else's design. So it is more of a how-to plus a meditation, and you're developing technique and executing folds very well.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the satisfaction is you're not necessarily creating something new. So it has it's a different kind of creative process. But when you look out there at the world of origami and you kind of get a sense of a positioning, and I don't think art is ever about where we fit on the scale, but emotionally it can seem like that when it's difficult. So what does that process look like for you, and any advice to people who maybe go, oh, I can't do this?
Obviously there's the classic persevering, but like I said, I started on YouTube. I just followed after doing I start with the traditional models. Everyone start with the traditional ones, but even those, some of them are difficult, but when you learn the basic kind of bases and things, you'll be amazed at how many of those are put into the trickier models. Like you said, it's a gradual process of learning different techniques. I would say I'm intermediate at best, maybe a bit advanced. Some of them are starting to be a bit more complex, but there's ones out there that have got 300-400 different diagrams, steps and things like that. And like I said, crease patterns become a new thing. So I'm still learning, and I'm hoping I'm going to get there eventually. I've been doing it for 20 years now, 20 odd years. So it's the same with everything, but everyone, if they want to take it to where they can, it's great. I've worked with 2 people, one of them when I've worked, and they made 1,000 cranes in 3 days. But that wasn't about, oh, how can I improve it to make a trickier model? It was, I'm going to set my challenge to be making this kind of target to get them through whatever they were going through. And the cranes is always a popular one, because if you make 1,000 of them, it's meant to be good luck over for that year. So that's obviously a well-known one. But yeah, it can be different things. Like I said, people make them themselves. One person made all their own decorations for their wedding, and again, they hadn't done any origami. It was kind of, right, I'm going to start, and it's just you'll get the hang of it if it's something that you're into. Obviously, have a go at a few models, but if suddenly you're on the second, third going, oh, I'm not sure I'm up for this, then yeah, keep on going with some of the models. But it's like any craft. I can't knit or crochet. I had a go at crocheting. It was interesting for how my bit turned out. But yeah, it's something that you'll get hooked on. And like I said, it's cheap in terms of starting. It's just a piece of paper. You don't need to cut or glue anything, especially at the start. And learn some of the basic folds, and you'll be flying with it, really. Especially, you'll be able to make a good 20-30 models if you learn the basic folds at the beginning. So yeah, you gradually improve upon it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's been good talking about it.
Yeah, and so you're in Bristol, in case
yes,
I'm grew up in Bath, so I've got some friends that may watch this that may be local, so can reach out.
I'm from Kent originally, so private school when I was a kid, so very lucky, but moved to Bristol to be with my partner. So but love Bristol, and it's like you said, Bath, lucky you, and lucky you at the moment where you are. So yeah, you can do it wherever though. I've gone on holiday and used bus tickets and everything. So and quite a few people use chocolate wrappers, whatever it might be, and restaurants are a good one because you can use those throwaway mats. And one of them I
Yeah.
made for one of the restaurants in Bristol, and I went in and forgot I'd made it, and I went in and I was like, oh, there's the little butterfly there, and she said, yeah, someone left it with our kind of bill. I was like, oh, I think that may have been, which was very nice. But they were like,
Yeah.
oh, it's good to keep things. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's a good point. There's always a throwaway mat here in
Yeah.
every restaurant.
Those things. Yeah, it doesn't have to
So,
be pen to paper. So
yeah,
yeah,
interesting. All
yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to dig into something. Have a little play around. But thank you
Yeah,
so much for
thank
the
you.
interview, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, obviously keep on going with it. YouTube's the best way to start. Obviously, with most things it is. But yeah, just start with the odd video. I think I've given you Joe Nakashima's, but yeah, that would be great. Brilliant.
Awesome. All right. All the
Thank you.
best.
Cheers. Take
Take
care.
care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.